After another lackluster series in Pittsburgh, it's time to ask a hard question about Elly De La Cruz.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. And we're so glad that you're alongside us here today. Steve and I have been podcasting about this team for a combined 14 seasons now, and we are talking about the Reds every single day, all throughout the year, here on the Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day. And on today's show, we are going to look into the pitching factory that the Cincinnati Reds have as José Acuña shoved yesterday in Chattanooga. We'll dig into that later on in today's show. In a few minutes, we will discuss an idea of trading one of the Reds' major league pitchers for a bat. Yeah. That's coming up here in just a few minutes. But I want to begin this show with a question. When will Elly De La Cruz step up? And hear me out on this one, Steve, because, and everybody needs to hear this one out. Elly De La Cruz is tied for the league lead in games played. He's played in every single game. I think he's only missed like an inning or two this season. I think it's like 3 total innings all year long, and it's just been in blowout games, whether they be blowout wins or blowout losses, that, you know, Tito just wanted to get him out of there. In those 51 games, he has 0.9 WAR, and he has an OPS plus of 95. When is he going to step up? Because I get it. There's other guys who are struggling more. Matt McLain is struggling more. We need Tyler Stevenson to get going, but he really just got out of the gate compared to other guys. Elly has to lead this bunch, and he's not doing it.
He's not doing it. As a matter of fact, if this doesn't put it into perspective for you, I don't know what will. He is among position players number 3 in wins above replacement right now. He trails on this team. He trails Jose Trevino. Jose Trevino has a 1 WAR, Elly De La Cruz 0.9 for this is B WAR we're talking about. Here's the kicker. He trails Will Benson. Will Benson has 1.1 B WAR, wins above replacement, and Elly is 0.9.
And if I do this math correctly, Elly has played in 40 more games than Will Benson has. And WAR is a cumulative stat. WAR is not like OPS plus, where it's like, okay, you have 2 great games and your OPS plus goes crazy. No, WAR is about what you do in a cumulative atmosphere through a long period of time. And currently, Elly is just barely above replacement level. Like, he is not the biggest problem on this team. I begrudge anybody that is mad about us for bringing that up. But we have to ask the question, because he has to be the guy. Terry Francona's put him in the 3rd spot in this order for a reason. He believes that Elly can drive the run production of this team. He is not doing that.
He's not doing that. And there's still the things, right? The little things, the things on top of the numbers on the back of the baseball card. There's the way that he approaches fielding a ground ball. There's the way that he goes about doing what he does. There's crashing into TJ Friedel when there was no need to crash into TJ Friedel. There's still these little mental lapses that he has that have to be eliminated if he's ever truly going to be elite. And then you look at these numbers and they're not horrible. 242, 317, 404. Okay.
It's the story of the season. This is not the guy.
Yeah, it totally is the story of the season.
He is the microcosm of this team, because the numbers aren't bad, but they're also not good. Like, even if you want to dig a little bit deeper, when runners are on base, and I'm not even talking about in scoring position, when there's somebody on the square things that are out there in the infield, the bases, he's hitting 219, and he's got an on-base percentage of 309. It's just not getting it done. And for me, like, we've talked about this in the past, and this is why I just keep coming back to it. This series accentuated it for me. The series loss is super frustrating, especially after sweeping the Cleveland Guardians. Now you come into a weekend series against the Cubs that you absolutely need, and we'll preview more about that on tomorrow's show. But it just kind of feels like Pittsburgh was the point for Elly to really get going. They were facing pitchers that he should clobber.
Yep.
No Paul Skeens, and he didn't. He disappeared again. Like, that happens too often with Elly this season, and it can't be. He needs to be the guy. Look, he is the headline right now for the wrong reason. We need to be talking about him as the headline for the reason why the Reds won. We are asking why he isn't the reason that the Reds are winning.
And I need him to be, I don't know, Jeff. This team needs a spark. And it's about the stats.
He's electric,
but it's about the electricity.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was just going to say. They need the spark. It's about the numbers, but it's also about, it's just about that energy. That it's a vibe check, right?
Yes.
How goes Elly? How goes the rest of the team? And we've seen the difference that it makes in this lineup when Austin Hayes is available versus when he's not. If Elly could get going with Austin Hayes in the lineup, it's a little bit of a different beast. And I'm sick and tired of the Reds scoring no runs, Reds scoring 1 run. They're a better team than that. Now I know that people are like, well, they're not a better team than that. They're showing you exactly who they are. No, they're a better team than what they've been doing in a lot of these series. They're a better team than the team that lost 2 out of 3 of the Chicago White Sox. They're a better team than the team that just lost 2 out of 3 to Pittsburgh. It's 100%. Infuriating. And you look at how they performed against Cleveland, and you can kind of see the ingredients that this team has. But the thing that's missing, you're absolutely right. The thing that's missing is Elly being that electric guy that just scares every single pitcher that's on the mound. And he has not been that guy. He's not been that guy in the batter's box, and he's not been that guy on the base pass. And
they've really kind of
I don't know, Terry Francona talked about reining Elly in a little bit, and what Terry said at the time, this is back in the offseason, what Terry said at the time was, well, Ellie's going to run, Ellie's going to do his things, but we're going to hone it in, and he's going to run in the right situations. And they overshot as far as I'm concerned, because they've gone a whole nother direction with his disruptiveness. They've kind of taken that away, and that was a big part of Elly being on base, was that disruptiveness, and he's not been that guy.
I almost wonder if he's thinking too much in all aspects of the game. Like, is he thinking too much in the field, thinking too much at the plate? There was a specific pitch that I can close my eyes and I can see it, that I'm just blanking on the guy's name from Pittsburgh that was pitching yesterday. Andrew Heaney. Whenever he threw it, it was a spinning slider, center cut, even a little bit higher up in the zone, like belt high, like should have been clobber this thing into whatever the name of that one of those 3 rivers is that the park is next to in Pittsburgh. And he swung right over top of it, and he missed it, and he struck out on it. It was an 82-mile-an-hour spinning slider in the middle of the plate, and he missed it. And the only reason that I think that he missed it is because he was looking for a different pitch. Like, he was swinging at a fastball, and he got an 82-mile-an-hour spinner, and because of that, he was too early on it. And he's got to stop thinking, I think, is what the problem is here. And ultimately, until he gets going, we are going to continue to see these up and down performances of a mediocre ball club, and the Reds need Elly right now.
And that's the Allegheny River, by the way.
Allegheny River. Yeah, one of those 3. Yeah, whatever. But I know this, Steve.
It's like, whatever. It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they need it. It's Pittsburgh, whatever. They need to get some help. And there's definitely a lot of ideas out there as to who the Reds could go after. But something that Nick Krall said in the offseason makes me wonder if they're not going to have to offer up somebody on the Major League roster. We'll tell you who they could do that with next. Get the supplies you need from the site that is made for the skilled trades. That's supplyhouse.com. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources. Whether you're looking for HVAC, plumbing, or electrical supplies, they can get you exactly what you need. From over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands. I mean, you'll find exactly what you're looking for, and it's all delivered fast from coast to coast. Plus, if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service so that you'll always talk to a real person every single time. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, there's the free Trade Master program that offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, you can use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single bit of content we've got coming your way. Jeff and I are here with you Monday through Friday on the Locked On Reds podcast. We got Tim Daniel in the feed after each and every Reds game on the Reds postcast. Plenty of opportunities to talk a little Reds baseball, you guys. So make sure you are subscribed. All right, Jeff, I stumbled into this when we were doing, I don't know if it was yesterday's show or the live show, but it was clearly a greater conversation that we needed to have. So here it is. We're going to do a segment on it now because I was kind of just talking out loud about what's going to happen with Rhett Lowder and Chase Burns and what that means for the big league rotation. And I just kind of blurted out, well, they probably trade one of Brady Singer and Nick Martinez. And you're like, whoa, stop. We're going to save that. So here we are. We're going to talk about the fact that they might trade Brady Singer or Nick Martinez. You look at both of those guys, their deals are such that they're very tradable. Nick Martinez, $21 million 1-year deal. That's very easy to move for a team that really needs a pitcher at the deadline. And then Brady Singer, while he's been that guy that, we were excited about, while he's been that stabilizing factor in the rotation, it doesn't change the fact that Rhett Lowder is coming. It doesn't change the fact that somewhere in the wings that they're trying to figure out if Wade Miley still got something in the tank. And then you've got the Chase Burns factor. You've got the Chase Petty, will he, won't he figure it out deal. And you look at this rotation, and if they need to go get a bat, you could trade one of those two guys in order to go get that bat and not have a lot of drop off, especially if Rhett Lowder goes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to point out the pitching depth that the Reds really have within their organization, especially with Rhett Lowder coming back off of injury. I know a lot of people are probably like, whoa, hey, whisper, knock on wood, you're saying pitching depth, and they've really had problems with that in the recent years. But I kind of feel it. Like, I think the Reds have a really good opportunity here, and there's no better time than now to do this because Brady Singer has an extra year of control, and Nick Martinez, you don't have any control over after the season ends. So if you're going to make a deal for somebody in the starting rotation, it's those two guys. You're not trading Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo. You're not trading Andrew Abbott, I believe, either, because I think Andrew Abbott has a real good shot to be a stable guy in the middle of this rotation for years to come. So I don't see that happening for either one of those three guys. It's the two, Singer and Martinez, there toward the back end of the rotation. And I find it interesting, see, because after his most recent start, Brady Singer is becoming the guy that we said he was going to be. As much as we were shocked at how good he was to begin the season, he has sort of fallen back, makes it seem as though he's pitched bad. He didn't really pitch that bad in Pittsburgh, but he's pitching more like the guy we expect. He's got a 4.88 ERA, but his FIP at 4.39 says he's really not getting that unlucky. He is a fine pitcher who pitches to a quality start just about every time out. His strikeouts per 9 have come down. He's now at 8 strikeouts per 9. So that's about what we expected from him. And while that is a fine stabilizing force, if you can get Rhett Lowder back, Rhett Lowder's better than Brady Singer is. And I think that Rhett Lowder's better than Nick Martinez is. So if you can kind of figure one of those two guys out, and we'll talk about Rhett Lowder here in a minute, because I know that there's some people that are like, but Jeff, his rehab ERA is horrible. Let me tell you why you're wrong. We'll do that in a few minutes. Rhett Lowder's going to be fine. But I think that with Rhett Lowder returning, that makes these guys expendable. And something Nick Krall said in the offseason, where I almost wonder if this is just the feeling overall. Like, I feel like in years past, if you had I'm trying to think of the right word. If you had a surplus of prospects, you were figured to be a buyer at the trade deadline. But he said this past offseason that when he contacted teams about making deals, they wanted major league players. They didn't want prospects. And I almost wonder, Steve, if we're running into an era where teams are like, I can draft prospects. I need major league talent. And there's such a disparity we've talked about in the past as well between someone who's good at AAA and someone who is good in the major leagues, or at least average in the major leagues. There's such a big gap there that the guy in AAA has to figure out how to bridge that gap, that I think more general managers are a bit hesitant to be like, yeah, just give me a good prospect, because there's still a lot of work to do with that guy.
Yeah, I think the days of trading in potential are changing. They're looking for more sure things, more bets. And you look at these two pitchers; they're both sure things. Yep. If I was to have to say I prefer one over the other, I would rather they traded Nick Martinez, Jeff. You look at what he's done, and you look at the back of his baseball card right now: 3.43 ERA in his 10 starts for the Reds this season. His numbers haven't been overwhelming, but he's just been steady, right? He goes out there, he kind of does his thing. He's not striking a ton of guys out. He's averaging 6.7 strikeouts per 9, but he's still doing that thing he did last year, which is he's not walking anybody, really. Mm-hmm. His walks per 9 is 2 on the season, Jeff. And you pitch to weak contact and you don't walk anybody, you have some success. So if they're going to move one of these guys for a bat, and it might take more, I want to be clear. I'm not
right.
saying
It's him and a prospect is probably what it is.
Prospect is what it is. And that prospect might be Edwin Arroyo. I mean, it could be a big deal to get a bat in here that really truly makes a difference. But if I'm having to pick, that's where I'm starting, Jeff. I just crystallized in my thinking, saying it out loud. I'm trading Nick Martinez and a prospect for a bat to come in here and try and make a difference that you can rely on day in and day out. And I'm comfortable with that deal, especially once Rhett Lowder is ready to go. You also look around, and we're going to do the whole next segment on the pitching factory that is the Cincinnati Reds minor leagues. You look around, they can afford to trade a pitcher right now. And you trade from your strength to help bolster your weakness. And we all know the weakness right now is a reliable everyday bat in that outfield. They have to go get one if they're going to be taken seriously. So that's the deal, Jeff. We get asked all the time on the live show, well, what would you guys do? What's your proposal? There's my proposal. It's crystallized in my head. It's Nick Martinez and at least one prospect for a bat that makes a difference. Go do it, Nick Carr. I know you're listening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's some guys, and I kind of want to hash out like who I'm thinking about on tomorrow's show, not necessarily go into that right now, but like Cedric Mullins is a name that's on there because, man, I don't know what's going on in Baltimore, but they just ain't figuring it out. And their biggest problem is pitching. Give him Nick Martinez, see if they can re-sign him for a couple more years or something like that. Or maybe they want Brady Singer over Nick Martinez. Like, I get it. I definitely would prefer of the two to trade Nick Martinez. But if it's a Brady Singer over Nick Martinez and Edwin Arroyo for Cedric Mullins, I'll take that deal. But at the end of the day, like, it's going to have to be something like that. And Nick Krall cannot just shut down conversations because an opposing GM wants a major league player. He's got a couple that he could offer. And I think that is kind of the overall point that we're getting to here, because the Reds need to make a move. They're not just going to be able to go through the season as is and expect to reach their ultimate goal. But I also know this, Steve. We mentioned the depth and the reason for it. And there was a guy who's not even in the top 20 as far as Reds prospects are concerned that pitched really well yesterday, which got me thinking, how is that Reds pitching factory doing? We'll discuss that next. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're on every single one of them out there. And before we get into the Reds pitching factory, how about them Pacers? Let's go Pacers, man. Yes, sirs. Tyrese Halliburton, what a freaking shot. Go check out Tony East, our friend over there at Locked On Pacers. For more on that, I won't get too much into that game. But man, these NBA playoffs have just been fantastic. And what else has been
did you check on our buddy Mo, by the way? I'm just wondering, did you reach out?
He's
He's
like, well, long series and stuff, but man, the series doesn't start until the road team wins a game. Well, game one, Pacers took one from MSG. But what else has been going really well has been the whole idea of the Reds becoming a pitching factory. And I really credit Derek Johnson with this. He has become the guru of developing pitching. And I think that the Reds are in a really good spot. And the best example of that, or at least the most recent example of that, was José Acuña yesterday, pitching for Chattanooga. He had a 6-inning shutout with 5 strikeouts and 2 walks. And he has just had a very good season in Chattanooga so far. He's 22 years old, even got a little bit of a taste of AAA pitching last season. And he's not even in the top 25, Steve. Like, this is a guy who we could be talking about as a legitimate option in a year or two to at least be a spot starter, if not be a 5th starter in the rotation. And we're not even counting on him as far as like a top prospect goes.
And those are the nice surprises, right? And don't forget that the Reds have had a good run of things like that happening, guys coming out of nowhere. I point you to Elly De La Cruz as the biggest example of, the drafting paying off and players developing. Everybody gets a little critical of the Reds and their drafting because it's either a pitcher or a shortstop, right? But those are the two hardest things to get at the major league level, and they've done a pretty good job of drafting from a position player side the best athlete on the field. That's usually the shortstop coming up through the young ranks, right? And moving them to another position and filling a need. Likewise with the pitchers, they've done a pretty good job of drafting arms that are usable or serviceable, and they don't all hit as starting pitchers, but you do need relievers. You need guys that can be in your bullpen. And I think the Reds have done a good job of stockpiling enough talented players that maybe factory is a stretch, but there's a lot of talent in the minor leagues right now that is probably going to make an appearance in the big leagues at one point or another. And some guys that already have that are learning new roles. And I'm excited about the pitchers that the Reds have down there. This is the first time in a long time when I look around the Reds pitching staff and I'm like, wow, the starting pitching's good. The bullpen, the bullpen's pretty good. I'm okay with what's going on there. They've got some guys down in the minor leagues. All right, we're cooking with gas. Let's do this. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've been in that position. So, looking around what's going on in the minors, I'm excited at what's coming up.
And the talent really stretches here. I think that it's more so AA and getting close to AAA, but there's even some guys at the lower levels that you get really excited about what they could develop into. I'm not saying that they're already ready to go, but they've definitely got some ways to go, but they've got a lot of excitement surrounding them. Because Acuña made me think of like, okay, let's take a look at some guys and using the rankings from our buddy Doug Gray over at RedsMinorLeagues.com. Like, look, if you want to know about the Reds minor leagues, go check out what Doug's got going on. Nobody knows the Reds minor leagues better than he does over at RedsMinorLeagues.com. And just looking at the pitchers who are in the top 20 of his rankings, I mean, Acuña isn't one of those guys, but he's looking pretty good. Could be earning a call up to AAA very soon. He did get a cup of coffee there last season, but he's only 22 years old. It's not as if it's like when's he getting to AAA? Like, he's kind of right there in that range where he should be. Speaking of another guy who should be called up to AAA pretty soon, Chase Burns. We talked a lot about him. If you missed that was on an episode earlier this week. Is he speeding up his clock? And we said yes to get to Louisville, not to the clock to Cincinnati. And just to rehash that for just a moment, 13.8 strikeouts per 9 for Chase Burns this season between high A and double A, and 2.02 walks per 9 between the two levels. Like, that's just amazing. We talked a lot more about him a couple of days ago. I won't go too far into that, but that's been amazing. And then Chase Petty, he was sent down to AAA whenever Ian Gibaut came off the injured list. I expect we'll see him get a little bit longer of a runway just to rebuild his confidence. Dude's got the stuff. And as long as he gets his confidence back, he'll get his command back. And we'll be seeing that bright future that we all expect from Chase Petty.
Chase Petty, people have to remember with him that he's just 22 years old. Like he was drafted out of high school. He didn't have that time pitching that the others got in big time college programs in the SEC or whatnot. Rhett Lowder and Chase Burns both did that. You look at Chase Petty, and I truly hope that the confidence thing isn't a thing with him. Yeah, he got smacked around hard in both of his appearances at the big league level, but there's a bright future there. I hope that he takes those lessons back down to AAA and works on some things, and that, he applies them and gets himself back, because the talent's there. As you say, he's clearly got the ability to be a pitcher. And I think he'll be a pitcher at the big league level. I don't want people to give up on him, is what I'm saying.
No,
those two starts, it's not like, well, he's done. Well, no, we're not doing that.
No, and
there's room to grow there. He's 22.
Right. And I think this is a golf metaphor, right? Like, he's going back down to AAA to see the ball go in the hole. Because when you're playing a bad round, sometimes that's all you need to see. And then the next couple of holes, you get back to what you do well. I expect to see that from Chase Petty. Another guy, because, Chase Burns, number 1 prospect in the Red system. Chase Petty, number 2 prospect in the Red system, according to Doug Gray over at RedsMinorLeagues.com. Rhett Lowder is actually ranked number 3. And I want to talk about this for a minute, because I've gotten some questions, some concerns from folks about Rhett Lowder and the fact that he has a 14.21 ERA in his 3 rehab starts. Don't worry about that, because everything else says that he's fine. He's got a beautiful strikeouts per 9 in these 3 outings. Again, this is a tiny sample size to go too crazy about strikeout to walk ratio, but 15.6 strikeouts per 9 compared to 2.8 walks per 9. And that's fine. And then when you look at the luck stats, both batting average on balls in play, and then we talk about this a little bit, but homer to fly ball ratio, both of those are insanely out of whack. A 550 BABIP against him, and homer to fly ball. For every fly ball that he's allowing right now, Steve, which, by the way, his ground ball rate is 58%. But for every fly ball he allows, 1 out of every 3 of them turns into a home run. That is an insane rate that will definitely come down. And his xFIP, which is the ERA predictor stat, says it's 3.0. Like, he's fine. He's going to be fine.
And let's not forget these. These are his rehab starts. These are him just getting going. These are his spring. Right. These are his spring training starts, guys. He hasn't pitched. So this is him working out the kinks and knocking off the rust and doing all those things that everybody else did in Goodyear. So, you almost want to spell out the word relax, right? I'm not gonna, but you almost wanna.
Right. No, I'm still excited.
He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine.
He's gonna be back. He's gonna make his debut soon, and we are excited to see that. A couple of other guys, Julian Aguiar came in at number 11 in Doug's rankings. He's, of course, recovering from Tommy John surgery. I expect he will be back into the rotation mix next season. There's a kid down in Arizona, Steve, and I know that people have heard this name because whenever the Reds signed him as an international free agent, there was a lot of excitement about the fact that he was a 2-way player. That's Shen-Eng Lin. He is 19 years old, playing in the complex league in Arizona. He made the decision in his coaches, and he made the decision this season to drop the position side of his 2-way player-ness, but he's still DHing. So he's DHing and he's pitching. He's doing the Ohtani, and he's pitching in the Arizona complex league. Very excited to see how he develops. But then on the converse side of things, he's got a long way to go before we know what we know about him. On the converse side of things, a guy that we started to really worry about here recently in Connor Phillips has had a nice little run here recently. Connor Phillips,
when we talked about this in show prep, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that guy. There he is.
Right.
Everybody, I mentioned this just a little while ago, Jeff, everybody's not cut out to be a starting pitcher. And sometimes you have to make adjustments, and what they've done with Connor Phillips is they've moved him to the bullpen. And when last we saw him, he had the pitching equivalent of the yips, right? He forgot what the strike
100%.
Zone looked like. He just simply couldn't find it. In fact, he was so bad that they took him out of the big league, or sorry, out of the rotation in the minor leagues,
AAA,
and they sent him back to the complex to like try and figure out
as if he was on a rehab outing or something.
Going on. Right. That's exactly what they did. So I feel good about the fact that they're trying to find a little niche for him and get something going for him. You look at his stats from this year. In Louisville, you can throw out the ERA, but out of the bullpen, he's starting to figure it out. And if he could become a viable, long inning guy, a viable, I'm not thinking closer or anything like that, but a 6th, 7th, 8th inning guy, that's a good outcome for what has happened with Connor Phillips. His days of being in the starting rotation conversation are over, but I think he could be a very useful relief pitcher for this team somewhere down the road.
Well, and as we've seen here recently, the Reds have gone on a stretch where it feels like they've really taxed their bullpen. So to have a guy in AAA that you can call up maybe for a short period of time to give those guys a bit of a rest, Connor Phillips could definitely be in that conversation this year, and maybe he deepens his impact with the team as the years go along. It's interesting to note he only has 2 minor league option years left. So the moment they call him up this year, then the next time they send him down, they take one of those away. So his time is going to start getting shorter for him, personally, career-wise, but I think they might have found something here. His last 4 outings as a relief pitcher, 0 walks. And that in and of itself sounds like a crazy breakthrough, knowing where he was all throughout last season. And even to begin this season a little bit, walks were still a huge issue for him. If he can really build on this, the Reds could probably start to see him be a bullpen option later on. One other guy, and the last guy we'll talk about because he's actually number 20 on Doug's rankings over at RedsMinorLeagues.com, Zack Maxwell, a name that people will remember from the spring breakout game this February, where he struck the guy out and gave him the thumbs down, and everybody was just like, get this guy on the Major League roster. He looks like a guy I could root for. And, personally for us, a game-worn jersey that we could fit into. But I think that he's a little bit further away because he's not doing so hot. This season, as a relief pitcher in AAA, he has a strikeouts per 9 of 7 and a walks per 9 of 6. And as much as we don't love to talk about pitcher ERA in the minor leagues, especially if they're relief pitchers, his ERA of 6 is actually being confirmed with all of his peripheral stuff. There's nothing that says he's getting unlucky right now, Steve.
No, and if you look at his walks per 9, just historically, everywhere that he's pitched, he's everywhere that he's pitched, all levels, 6 seasons, his walks per 9 7.4. This is kind of who he is. There is a command and control problem. So of all the guys we talked about today, he's probably, in my mind, the longest shot, right? Like he's the guy that you look at his numbers and you're like, I don't know. Like there's some upside there. Because conversely, that 7.4, his all levels strikeouts per 9 is 14.3. So he's been able to blow the doors off some guys, but he walks a lot of dudes.
He's been in the same boat as Luis May, where I kind of was worried about Luis May's control. And I think his most recent outing, we started to see that a little bit where he got wild, but he was able to pitch out of it. I wonder if Zack Maxwell may be more of a control risk there. And that's kind of tough because he is 24 years old. So we're kind of getting to the point. We're not just there yet, but we're getting to that point where in his point in development, the Reds got to decide who he is and maybe give him a shot and let him sink or swim. Because there's so many other guys, as we're talking about, that are coming up behind him that he's going to get pushed out kind of quickly when it comes to the pecking order of chances.
I agree with you, and that is probably a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We appreciate you. Make sure you've subscribed. Click that like button. Click that notification bell. Subscribe in the audio feed. You get us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, here on the Locked On Reds podcast. You get Tim Daniel after each and every Reds game on the Reds postcast. Now that you've made us your first listen, go check out our buddy Sully over at Locked On MLB. He's covering Major League Baseball, the national perspective. He's got great stories, lots of insight. You're going to be glad you gave him a listen. Until next time, when we are in your feeds, we're going to keep gathering up the news, the notes, the information, the rumors, and the reports. We're going to bring it all right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
I mean, that shot that Halliburton took bounced so high, even
I
the
don't
Statue
know
of
that
Liberty was like, whoa.
if you keep it up, Mo is never going to talk to you again.
Probably not.